now. Broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in
gotta
the
let them
occupied
know.
territory of the Socialist Republic of California. Your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Hey, here we are with another week, and wow, it is really seriously trouble for Hillary Clinton. I feel her pain. I am not going to lie. I'm not saying I'm a Hillary Clinton fan, not by any stretch of the imagination, but she's in serious, serious trouble, and she is falling like a rock, and it is not a good situation for Hillary Clinton. She made a comment over the weekend that was so disrespectful of the public that even liberals are saying, is she finished? Has she literally sunk her chances? And, I don't understand why the stock market would go down on the same day that Hillary is crashing and burning. You'd think the stock market would go up. You'd think that people would say, well, it looks like there's a better chance we might actually get a conservative. Don't look now. I have a suggestion, and I know it's going to sound crazy, but given that Hillary is likely to drop out on the Democrat side, why don't they draft Jeb Bush? Why don't they draft Jeb Bush to be the candidate? Can you imagine? I mean, Jeb Bush is just like Hillary Clinton in every regard. So why not? I think Jeb Bush would be a better candidate as a Democrat than he is as a Republican. And he's got name recognition, so that helps the Democrats instead of putting someone like Joe Biden up. And it would be a great contest, because then you could have someone like Donald Trump run against Jeb Bush and annihilate him. I don't know. So maybe it sounds crazy, but crazier things have happened. Who would have ever thought that we'd be in the situation we're in? I mean, Hillary has gone from 60% in the polls. She has dropped 18 points, like a free fall, much like the stock market. I think the stock market should be skyrocketing. I think people should be rejoicing that we might actually have an American in the White House, that we might actually have a conservative. We might actually have somebody who understands that you can't give away taxpayer money forever. You cannot redistribute all of the wealth from those who work and give it to those who don't, and it have no impact on the economy and on the stability and on the overall fiscal sanity of a nation. I say it that way because if I say balance sheet, you'll fall asleep. If I say the bottom line, it's not descriptive enough. But the bottom line is that we've got a shot. We've got a real chance to get a conservative. I'm just telling you, it's a crazy thing. If you're watching this battle between Hillary Clinton and the Democrat Party, Not forget about Hillary Clinton and the Republican Party. She's fighting her own party. And she's acting like everything's fine. But she literally said over the weekend, oh, you mean wipe it clean with a cloth? Talking about the server. Making fun of everybody who's questioning what's really going on. And it's hard to believe that she has fallen this far. But then again, who would have ever thought that a guy like Donald Trump would be surging in the polls and that a whole pack of Republicans would be almost completely forgotten and ignored by the public, because that's what's happening. Now, you do have some people popping their heads up here and there and making some waves, but the bottom line is that most Americans are not paying attention. They're not paying close enough. They couldn't name everyone who's in the race. They could probably only name one person, maybe two at the most. And if they could name one person, it would be Donald Trump and maybe Hillary Clinton. But it's very unlikely they would know the rest. But we know that that's different here with you in the Radio Free California audience. We're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll talk to you. 323-746-TALK. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. You are listening to the Radio Free California Network studio, and we are talking about everything that's going on. Stock market crash, Hillary Clinton crash. It's hard to believe that her downfall has been so dramatic and so devastating. It just gets worse and worse. Her major donors are flipping over to Biden. So there's a tremendous amount of pressure to get Hillary into the race. Well, you know what I mean. To get Biden into the race to replace her. And it looks like it just looks as if she is on her way out. As a matter of fact, Biden was meeting with Senator Elizabeth Warren and discussing I'm sure, swinging her support his way. And it's a very tough thing for her. I'd love to be sitting in the White House or in the Clintons' house and hear that conversation. Because I guarantee you know what Hillary's probably doing? I bet you she's taking it out on Bill. Here Bill is minding his own business. Bill is trying to just get by another day with Hillary, and she's got to be livid. But she brought this on herself. It's hard to have a great deal of sympathy for someone who literally shot herself in the foot and continues to reload and fire over and over and over and over again. That's the part that's really hard to believe. But Donald Trump keeps on moving. He ain't going anywhere. He's not giving up. He's doing pretty well. I mean, if you look at all the different pieces in this race, his biggest problem, Trump's biggest problem is not Donald Trump. His biggest problem is the GOP political class that hates his guts. But really, that's a problem for the consultant class. The consultant class hates his guts. They're looking for how they can. One of them even went on CNN and said, "We just want to figure out how we can stab him in the back. If we can stab him in the back, then and take him out, Brutus style, then they think they will have accomplished something." What they don't understand is when you stab Donald Trump in the back, you're stabbing all the people that support him. How stupid can you be? And these guys get paid the big bucks. They get paid the big bucks to lose elections. They get paid the big bucks to lose elections with style. Get a billionaire in there, like they did out here in California with Meg Whitman. Spend $170 million of her money pushing a candidate that people hate. Do they hate her because she's a horrible person? No, not really. She wasn't a bad person, but they hated her because she was boring. They hated her because she didn't believe in anything. Nothing that the GOP or the Republican base believed in, such as securing our border. She didn't believe in that. She wanted a full amnesty. When it came to issues even like global warming, she couldn't make up her mind, and she actually refused to support a ballot initiative at the time that was designed to undo all of the nonsense cap and trade scheme, AB 32. Remember that bill? They tried to undo it. They tried to undo it because it meant jobs. If you could get the government from confiscating all this capital from the business owners and the job creators, then they could actually, don't look now, create jobs and grow their businesses instead of being robbed by a government that wants to redistribute their wealth so they can stay in power. She couldn't even come out and say, yeah, I'm with you. All of you who are out of work, all of you who own small businesses, all of you who are offended at a government who is interfering on a level and doing things that are not enumerated in the Constitution, that have nothing to do with the business of government, and trying to resolve what they have identified as a global climate crisis. They can't decide if it's too hot or too cold. The data and the evidence is never there. The science is never there. But in their minds, it exists. And they have used these theories to literally seize control and take away freedom from ordinary Americans who are just trying to make a living, from people who are not hurting anyone. They're just trying to run their business and mind their own business and pay their taxes. But when the government comes in and they say your business is no longer allowed here in the state of California. Now, they don't say that outright. They literally, they do it using a quiet form of tyranny where they come in and they penalize you financially. They make it so expensive for you to stay in business that you not only fail, but as you're failing, they're able to help you part with a lot of your money. You know, if they used a gun to do this, it would be illegal. But of course they don't. They never use a gun. They just use the government. So it is a very interesting time to be alive. I certainly wouldn't want to be Hillary Clinton. But we'll be discussing this much further here in the show today. And by the way, we've got an exciting guest coming up. We've got Sheriff Paul Babu, Pinal County Sheriff. By the way, took Trump and Dr. Ben Carson to the border. We'll be right back. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Hey, you are listening to the Radio Free California Network, and we're talking about Hillary. And there's a lot of bad news on the horizon for her, but I want to read you a little article by an individual who was a liberal, and I'll let him speak for himself. People can change worldviews. I did. That's me, the only faithfully married Hispanic pictured with Hillary in 2007, 40 pounds heavier and pocketbook lighter after forking over the required campaign donation to attend a young Hollywood fundraiser. I was your typical default liberal. I briefly toyed with supporting then Senator Obama, but after reading his books, his message felt foreign to me. And not Kenyan foreign, just not what I saw as appetizing to my clearly large palate. Although the aesthetics of his brand and the likely his iTunes playlist more aligned with my upbringing and circle of friends, something about his message just didn't quite jive with me. So being the post-racial person that I am / was, I decided not to drink the Kool-Aid. But on my drive to the 2008 ballot box, accompanied by my blind support of Hillary, an unexpected turn came along. It was the immediate collapse of then Senator Biden's campaign after calling Obama clean and articulate, a truly deplorable display of generosity. Obama personally handled the brouhaha well, but the pundits' public shaming of the human gaffe machine foreshadowed what was to come. They would soon turn on Hillary, then on Hillary supporters. It caught me off guard. It was the first time I'd paid really close attention to politics. and the intra-party attacks didn't feel good. Then something funny happened. My internal selection bias sent me on a search to find outlets friendly to Hillary. I turned off my trusted news source, CNN, and did the unthinkable. Turned on Fox News. Aside from the occasional need for comic relief, I never turned back to my old station. And after some soul searching, I left the Democrat Party voter rolls for good. I just could no longer rationalize the correlation between the rise of its rhetoric with the decline of the same minority groups it claimed to support. I worked in the ideologically monolithic arts community and came out as right-leaning in the most public of ways, first on these same Breitbart pages and then on Fox News. I say all of this because it wasn't long ago that I was a default liberal voter. A sure thing on the Dems' booty call list come election night. It took a lot of know-it-all political pundits and a few comically intolerant friends to shake me into rethinking my worldview. The new amigos I gained after this unexpected awakening didn't question my recent conversion. They just welcomed me into the fold. This is why I find it so misguided, albeit possibly well-intentioned, that my friends on the right have taken such a publicly disgusting approach to interacting with Trump supporters, known in some circles as Republican voters. At times, they've taken on the tactics of their ideological adversaries. After listening to Mr. Trump discuss his evolution away from some of his former liberal views, it sounded strikingly similar to my own experience. When you're surrounded by a singular political philosophy at all times, and your success depends on being part of that community, your true positions on individual issues can sometimes be muted within. But here we have a candidate, Mr. Trump, that has a huge advantage of broad name recognition. He works pop culture better than almost anyone in existence, has no current need of donor class money. Yeah, there's a real... Has an incredible ability to handle the media, gets my humble opinion, gets most of the big issues right, has even more of a chance than Mr. Carson or Mr. Rubio, in my humble opinion, to win over converts. And is likely the one person that could clean up the immigration mess uncorrected by even Ronald Reagan. And yet, many of my friends continue to bash Trump's perceived recent evolution. The man declared himself a Republican, was labeled a conservative all the way back in 1988. And most importantly, smart people have resorted to name-calling an entire group of people on their own team. So to my friends on the right, take it from someone who has, not so long ago, traversed the convert forest. Calling a large group of your team idiots and morons is not a winning strategy. Period. And by period, I mean to add emphasis, not a menstrual cycle reference. That was written by Patrick Correllici. I'm not saying that right. It's Well, anyway, I can't say his name right. It's an unusual name. I've never heard it before, but it's a very articulate piece that he wrote for Breitbart News. He basically is a former Democrat who is asking the Republican Party to call off the dogs on Donald Trump. I mean, are you getting this? It isn't the Democrats who are sicking the dogs on Donald Trump. It's the Republicans. It's the GOP consultant class. They've decided that it's okay. They figured the only way they have to win, to get, first of all, they have to get past Donald Trump. They're realizing he is a serious candidate. And one of their ilk went on the Sunday shows this weekend and said, what we need to do is get really, really close to Trump and then stab him in the back. Brutus style. Yeah, you just heard that. Brutus style. Now, if they're stabbing Donald Trump in the back, they're not just taking out Donald Trump. They're stabbing you in the back. They're stabbing everyone in the back who believes in a man who has stood up and taken slings and arrows for them. And this could be the single fastest way to literally take down the Republican Party. The very people who brag and claim that they represent the Republican Party, that they are the true elite, and that Trump supporters are idiots and troglodytes and morons and crazy people. And yet Trump is the only one who is bringing in young people. He's the only one who is drawing people from across racial lines and economic lines. When you have the media demonizing him as anti-Hispanic, and we get Hispanic callers who say, yeah, I didn't like a couple things he said, but I agree with him that he's the only one who can create jobs. And that's the issue for me. Well, with the highest unemployment rate in recent history, there's a whole lot of people that really don't care whether the press likes him, whether the political pundits like him, whether the political class likes him. They just care whether he'll fight for us. And if you think someone's going to fight for you and fight in your interest, you're not just going to vote for him. You're going to campaign for him for free. You're going to go all over your circle of friends, and you're going to get people to support him. That's the bottom line. And that's a very powerful force. So the harder the GOP attacks Donald Trump, the more you hurt yourself. Because let me tell you, if they see your hand on that knife sticking out of Donald Trump's back, they will never vote with you again. You can put up Jeb Bush, but they will stab Jeb Bush in the back and make sure he loses. I feel like I can't say this emphatically enough, but I have some radical advice to Hillary, but I'll give it to you when we get back. 323-746-TALK is our number. We'll be right back after these messages. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. You are listening to the Radio Free California Network. I am Tim Donnelly, your host, former California State Assemblyman and gubernatorial candidate. And by the way, we are celebrating. My son David is home from his tour of duty in the Coast Guard. And he came home last night, drove 19 hours down from Seattle with his brother, and is sitting here in the studio in person. So, first time. I promised you that I have some breaking advice. I said for Hillary, but it's really for the Democrat Party. I got a crazy idea, and I want you guys to tell me if I'm out of line. No, don't tell me before I tell you. But I would love to get your take. But it's kind of like when you watch a game, an intramural game, let's say, and somebody gets hurt. So what do? If only one player gets hurt and you have an extra player, you give the other team your extra player, right? Isn't that fair? I mean, that's kind of what we do.
Right. I mean, you always have to keep the sides even.
Right. Now, you don't give them your best player. Let's be honest.
No, never.
Never, right? So right now, the GOP is divided. You've got the likes of Jeb Bush with all this money, and he wants to spend all this money to destroy Donald Trump or Ted Cruz or whoever gets in his way, right? I mean, whoever the conservative is, the establishment wants to destroy. That is the story of modern day Republican primaries. Bottom line, doesn't matter what race it is, the establishment money will always go after the candidate that is most favored by the people. Now, what do the people want? The people don't want to be stolen from as much. And the establishment doesn't want to fight the theft in form of taxes and fees and the transfer of wealth through entitlement programs because they want to be liked. But wanting to be liked doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. And the people want a candidate that will do the right thing, even if it's unpopular with the political establishment and the entitlement class. So you have two classes. You have the middle class, which are the people. Then you have the political power class up here, and then you have the entitlement class down here. But the entitlement class has more power than the middle class who pays all the taxes. That's ludicrous. So I've got a crazy idea. Well, and I want you to tell me how crazy you think it is. Hillary is on her way out, right? She's injured. She's wounded. She's in a downward death spiral, and it gets worse every day. So why don't we give them Jeb Bush? Let's give the Democrats Jeb Bush. He's much more popular than Joe Biden, right? I mean, the Democrats agree with him on almost every issue. He wants a full-bore amnesty. He hates guns, hates the Second Amendment, thinks it's a social issue. He is with Hillary on Common Core. He wants to force government control, mandated control over education, the Common Core state standards. He loves them. And he's not a fiscal conservative either. He's a big government guy. So the Democrats should love him. Now, the only problem he has is his name. So they might want to tune him up a little bit and change his name to something a little more Democrat sounding. I'll leave that to them. But can you now imagine? Now, with him as a Democrat, then you could actually have Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Ben Carson and Scott Walker and all these guys. They could fight for the nomination, and they would be running against an establishment candidate. It really doesn't matter when you're an establishment candidate, meaning you defend the status quo, meaning you are in favor of ever-growing government. You are in favor of the redistribution of wealth as it's currently set up by the ever-growing government. You are in favor of depriving Americans of freedom in the name of ever-growing government so that you can hire armies and armies and armies more of regulators who will regulate the American people into compliance. Meanwhile, you ignore the impact of all those regulations, of all those costs, of all those indirect taxes on free enterprise. Now, I say free enterprise rather than business, because when you say business, most people roll their eyes and they think, oh, the big evil corporations. You know how many people are in most corporations? 2. Or are you guessing, or are you telling me 2 minutes?
I'm telling you 2 minutes.
Oh, well, I just want to get the hand signals clear. But you're right. It's 2 people. It's a husband and wife. It's a mom and pop. That's why they call it a mom and pop shop. But they've created a corporation to try to protect themselves from the government and the army of I'm sorry, do you call it an army of sharks? No. What are sharks when they band together? Come on, give me some help here.
I don't know, a tribe of sharks?
No, it's not a tribe. What do we call them? What when fish swim together? It's not a herd.
A school.
A school. Okay, so a school of sharks. So you're trying to protect yourself, your business, your assets, your capital from the school of sharks known as lawyers and the government. And Jeb Bush ain't on your side. I hate to tell you that. He's not with you. He's with the sharks. He's with the government regulators. He's with the entitlement class. And he's with the power class, the political establishment that thinks that they're so smart and so powerful, they have every right to control every aspect of your life. And the bottom line is, there's a growing number of people who are sick and tired of politicians, and we want to kick them in the teeth, and we want to take back our freedom. 323-746-TALK. We're going to have Arizona Sheriff Paul Babu coming up right after this break. You won't want to miss him. Hey, we are going to switch gears here at the Radio Free California Network studio. We're going to move off of Hillary's woes, even though I still think, and you're welcome to call in a little bit later on. We'll give you the number when we want your calls. But I still want to know what people think of my idea of having Jeb Bush run as a Democrat in Hillary's place. And then we would actually be able to have a choice, instead of merely two establishment candidates, which is, of course, what they would like. I'm going to bring on a friend of the Tim Donnelly Show and a friend of mine who is fighting the good fight in Arizona. First Republican ever elected as sheriff of Pinal County, Arizona. And he's been in the news lately for two reasons. One, he has been very outspoken on sanctuary cities. Also was very heavily involved in exposing Fast and Furious, but most recently took Dr. Ben Carson to the border. Sheriff Paul Babu, welcome to the show.
Tim, thanks for having me on, my friend.
It is great to talk to you. You are a true patriot and a great American, and you are out there fighting the good fight every day.
Oh, thanks. That's a lot coming from you. And it's like when I was out in your district, your signs had how they say it, you're a patriot, not a politician. And that's what we need more of, is patriots standing up for our republic. Absolutely.
And, of course, you don't have a republic if you don't have the rule of law. And that's something you and I have been united in fighting for, is to essentially defend not only the idea of a border, but also the idea that the rule of law applies to everyone, even those in high power.
Well, the law applies to you, I, and all the citizens who are listening, but when it comes to people from foreign countries who disrespect our laws and our process, there is no law because there's no consequence. And that's where this president, Barack Obama, I'm going to name him, Eric Holder, the new AG, all these guys and gals in this administration, including all the czars, have deliberately trampled on our Constitution, undermined the rule of law, and they failed to fulfill their oath to protect our country. And why should it be the job of us and local law enforcement alone to be leading this fight against the drug cartels? And and meanwhile, they're releasing 67,000 criminals just in the last 2 years. Not our U.S. criminals, illegals, people who are not from our country, have committed very serious, grave crimes, releasing them back into our communities where our citizens live. And you don't have to be the sheriff to figure out what's going to happen because of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here in California, of course, we're on the front lines in a different way than you are, because we have elected officials here who have made it very clear that they don't like Americans, but if you're an illegal alien, come on in, we'll create sanctuary for you. And the result of that is last year we had 2 sheriff's deputies who were executed in cold blood by a cartel operative that everybody thought was this super nice guy. He got a driver's license in Utah. I don't know how he got his assault weapon, given how hard we supposedly make it to get those into the hands of criminals, but he did. And he was just a cold-blooded killer. And then now, most recently, Catherine Steinle in San Francisco just murdered in cold blood by somebody who never should have been released onto the streets of San Francisco.
It's sick, and this is what's happening all across our country. We've screamed about sanctuary cities. There's 275 plus in our country. Forget sanctuary cities, Tim. We have a sanctuary country. This entire nation is a sanctuary for these criminal illegals who are released onto the streets of our community, ready to commit these crimes again. I have 1,100 prisoners only in my jail in Pinal County, Arizona. Over 30 of them convicted of murder, because I have some state prisoners here. 25 who have been convicted of rape. I have another 35 that are convicted of kidnapping. If I open the doors right now as we're talking and let all 1,100 out, in the next 10 days, it's very likely that somebody's going to get raped, somebody's going to get kidnapped, and maybe 1 or 2 people get murdered. And who are people going to blame? They're going to blame me. They're going to lynch me. Okay? So how in the world do we allow Barack Obama to lead the largest prison break in the history of our nation, 67,000 criminals? Just last year alone, 193 of them are convicted of murder, and they're released into our streets. 400 plus convicted of rape and sexual assault, released into our streets. 300 plus convicted of kidnapping, and then thousands of others of aggravated assault, armed robbery, and the list goes on and on. What do we think is going to happen? And how is this president not directly responsible for these crimes and answerable to these victims that are American citizens?
Well, Paul, Sheriff, you and I both know the answer to that. You know, had you made it into the Congress, maybe there would be another voice speaking the truth. But we aren't hearing that kind of truth the way you just said it, coming from the Republicans in Washington. They want to play it safe. They want to be, sort of be liked and help and essentially continue to grow government. And there is no effective opposition because they think that by pandering to people based on their ethnicity, that somehow they're going to increase the size of their party. They're ignoring the Donald Trump effect, which is speak the truth, and people will actually come together and join your party and join you in the effort to do something, not to talk about it, but to do something.
Exactly.
Because you've seen, you are literally on the front lines. You have how many deputies that work for you?
We have 600 full-time staff, but only 214 that are uniformed like me.
Okay.
And in the last year alone, we've arrested 19 cartel scouts on mountaintops in my county. And geographically, we're larger than the state of Connecticut. And we only have 214 deputies. And it begs the question of how is it the job of the local sheriff, where we answer 911 calls and respond to all these emergencies, how is it my job? I'm happy to do it. But my God, this president ignores what's written in the Constitution as his duty and his oath, and then tries to do all these things that aren't in the Constitution to try to force down our throats and to take rights away from us that are spelled out there.
See, I don't think he ignores it. I think he intended to subvert it. I think his goal was to fundamentally destroy America. And how do you do that when you're in power? But he's literally given orders to the politicians who run the DHS and the politicians who run Border Patrol and every other aspect of Homeland Security and told them spy on Americans, but don't enforce any immigration laws anywhere ever.
Right.
Period.
Well, that's exactly what's happened. And this president, thank God that we only have a year and a half left, and we have to elect somebody who truly understands, and I'm not committed in this race yet, but Dr. Carson, I took him up in our helicopter here and showed him these caves that these cartel scouts live in on a 50-mile swath of my county along Interstate 8, along Interstate 10. Essentially, they're there 30 days at a time, resupplied with food and water, binoculars. They have not just their cell phones, they have dual band digital radios that are encrypted.
They got better equipment than the Border Patrol, don't they?
Better equipment than me, certainly. Here we don't even have encrypted radios at our sheriff's office, and yet we in one day we arrested 76 members of the cartel.
Oh my word!
108 weapons, 108 guns. Not just I'm carrying a .40 caliber Glock right now. They were carrying scoped rifles, AK-47s. 2 of them we trace back to Fast and Furious, the very weapons that Eric Holder, the ATF, helped facilitate to the cartels that we're fighting. And now they're being used against us in this fight.
Well, I certainly understand your anger, Sheriff, and you have every right to express it because nobody else really is. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because you have so much courage. And what was Dr. Carson's reaction to seeing all this? I'm sure it was a shock, because the border is not a place I think he's spent a lot of time.
The first question he asked, it was the reporters were aghast. They were just like, literally, you could hear this, because he says, well, what if we actually had drones and we sent missiles into these caves and blew up these caves? And people couldn't believe that he said this. And I'm like, imagine a president who sees this as a war, right? Who sees that our safety, our security is a priority for once, putting America first in our national interest rather than be shouted down by the current office holder that tries to make like somehow we're un-American because we want a sovereign, secure border.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Hey, Sheriff, do you have time to stay with us one more segment, or do you have to go?
No, you got it, my friend.
All right. We're talking with Pinal County Sheriff Paul Babu, and we will have a whole lot more coming up right after this break. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. If you were looking for the Tim Donnelly Show, you found it. We're here every weekday, 3 to 6 p.m. We stream live at timdonnellyshow.com. You can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and right now we're talking with Pinal County Sheriff Paul Babu, who recently took Dr. Ben Carson, presidential candidate and neurosurgeon, on a tour of the border. Sheriff, so you said the reporters were horrified by the question that Dr. Carson asked about actually treating those who would come into our country on behalf of the cartels to do evil, and he suggested that maybe we use drones and blow up these caves.
Right, absolutely. And oftentimes when I'm describing the situation here on the ground, and bear in mind, I'm a retired Army officer, served a tour in Iraq, commanded soldiers along the border down in Yuma at Marine Corps Air Station.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
My privilege. And so here I'm describing the scenario, and actually most people think I'm talking about some war-torn nation like Afghanistan of lookouts and armed cartel members and the size and scope of their activities. And so his response was, well, we should treat them as a military threat and concern.
Yeah.
And I thought it was welcoming.
Yeah, well, I think most people feel that way. The average person who's paying taxes to support all of this doesn't understand why we tolerate a federal government that doesn't do its enumerated duties. Article 4, Section 4 says that the federal government shall keep each state free from invasion. How's that working in Arizona?
Yeah, it's not. And that's where I also took him down to Cochise County, which is directly on the border. And I introduced him to ranchers with Sheriff Mark Daniels, my fellow sheriff, where they've had a family member who was murdered by these drug cartel members and others that were victimized, not once, numerous times, home invasions by armed gunmen from a foreign country all along our border, where property has been stolen, destroyed, and they can't even leave their house and talk about our freedom and talk about the pursuit of happiness. And picture this. Imagine if it's your family and you cannot leave your house unless somebody's there armed, ready to protect it, because they know that people are watching and these cartel members are going to come in and ransack your home.
Yeah,
that's the situation. You
have American citizens living in terror. So talk about a war on terror that our government always talks about waging abroad. What about the war on terror that American citizens are living with in their own backyards, in their own living rooms, where they're literally cowed and intimidated by cartels who come through regularly armed to the teeth and have no problem killing American citizens and killing American law enforcement?
Exactly. I've never heard it described quite like that, but that's exactly what it is, Tim. You're right.
Well, I've been there with the same people you've talked to just years ago, and I've heard from them, and I'm so glad that you took Dr. Ben Carson there to meet them, because whoever's going to be the president, they need to understand that you've got to represent all Americans.
Exactly. And you know what I found so genuine about the guy? Never met him. I've heard him before, of course, watching him on Fox News, that the guy is truly is a patriot. He's so unassuming, a different personality than anybody I've ever seen that's run for elected office. And he goes down, he spent from 7:30 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night with me, my deputies, and then the sheriff of another county, trying to understand every aspect of this issue, talking to victims, talking to people, citizens, not the illegals, not the ACLU, but talking to our citizens who have been negatively impacted, who have no trust at all in our federal government because of the broken promises, the lies, the kabuki dance that they do to get elected and then do nothing once they're in office. And people, quite frankly, are pissed off. And this is where, in my state, 54% of the Republicans, that support goes to Trump, Dr. Carson and Carly Fiorini, 3 never before elected candidates for
Wow.
office. It shows you the level of dissatisfaction and the broken trust that we have with the politicians who have betrayed our country.
Absolutely. And we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it at all kinds of races. I have an obvious question. Have you been contacted by any other campaigns to take them on a tour?
Yes. And in fact, I sent out an invite, and heck, I'd even take Hillary Clinton just because it would be an interesting debate back and forth between me and her, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be a hoot.
Paul.
But they all need to understand it, and that's what Dr. Carson said. He goes, look, I want every candidate to come here and talk to you people and to see what's going on truly and not just make these statements like it's a position paper.
Hey, Sheriff Paul, I would love it if you would take Hillary off my hands for a little while. I need a break. Just take her down there to the border, but don't bring her back, please.
Wouldn't that be fun?
So we're worried about Hillary. We really think that she may be going down. I know you've seen corruption up close and personal at this level.
Oh, yeah.
With Fast and Furious, and you were relentless on it. And of course, nobody has paid a price. Only our law enforcement. We lost Brian Terry at the hands of one of those Fast and Furious guns that our government trafficked down there. And I know you guys have lost some people there. I mean, this is insane. But she seems...
This is where even in Mexico, over 300 people, they directly linked to be killed by weapons of our country, while Eric Holder and Obama have been blaming our Second Amendment freedoms on America and our rights for this violence in Mexico. The Attorney General down in Mexico wanted whoever was responsible for this extradited to Mexico to face criminal penalties there. I'm all for it. Send Eric Holder down there.
Yeah, there you go. Now, there's an idea I'm absolutely in agreement with. Hey, Sheriff Paul Babu, you are doing an incredible job down there in Pinal County. I'm hoping one day to get out there and visit you and take that tour. But if you take another candidate, we'd love to get another update from you. Great talking to you.
You got it, my friend.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Keep up the great work. Bye.
Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. 323-746-TALK. That's our number. And I'm curious what you think of my suggestion to the GOP. You know, I don't usually give them advice because they're so busy committing suicide as a party. But I just thought I'd be helpful today. I'm just feeling it. And I'd love to know what you think. Should we give Jeb Bush to the Democrats? It's a perfect idea. Well, I just want to know. I'm getting strange signals from the production booth. I never quite know what that means. Does it mean you hate my idea? Or I really want to know what you think. Because look, first of all, I don't think anybody could call in and tell me that there's any appreciable difference between Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. So we'll start there. You name the issue, and I bet they're aligned because they are establishment candidates. And I've been spending a lot of time with this SB 277 referendum. I've been spending a lot of time with Democrats. And you know what I found? A lot of Democrats hate Hillary. They hate Hillary because she won't stand with them on issues that matter to them. She plays the political game and she prevaricates and she essentially takes the side of whoever's got the money. She's no different than an establishment Republican. They're both whores to the donor class. And I mean big whores. This is not on a small scale. This is on a huge scale. And Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton have sold themselves to various interests, oftentimes called special interests, but they're really the people in power. They're the top 1%, the George Soroses, the massive, mega, monolithic donors who are always at work looking to control every aspect of our lives because they can. So 323-746-TALK. Do you think if we traded, now I don't know if we would want to trade because I don't think there's anybody over there that we need on our side, but if we decided in the interest of fairness, because we have 17 candidates and they only have what, 5? And they're soon to have 4 because if Hillary drops out, and it's looking more and more like that, every day some new revelation, including the comments she made this weekend. Is there any way we can? No. Okay. Her comments this weekend, when you hear them, you'll understand everything I'm saying. But what it's done is it has had an effect on the donors. It has had an effect on the average Democrat. It has had an effect on the average voter, who's now saying, do we really want someone in elected office who has so many problems, who doesn't understand that what she has done is wrong, and she's laughing about it and making fun of people and making fun of the situation as she doesn't take it seriously. She does not consider this a serious problem, and yet her party does. So all I'm thinking is, look, I hate to have a game where it's not fair. I don't want to win just because we have such a better team. I mean, look what we have. We have Donald Trump. We have Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz. We've got Dr. Ben Carson, neurosurgeon. We've got a former CEO, Carly Fiorina, who is absolutely, I would argue there is no one better on foreign policy than her. Now, true, we could potentially, I would say Donald Trump has a natural instinct for the right thing to do, but Carly understands the nuances. She understands what's really happening and who all the players are and what sides there are and sort of how to play it. And Hillary certainly doesn't. She's clueless when it comes to handling foreign governments. And she was Secretary of State. That's the part that's so sad. This was her job. This was her daily duty as an constitutional officer of the United States. And yet Carly Fiorina dances circles around her with the knowledge that she possesses Donald Trump has the instinct to negotiate. And that's what we need. We don't need Obama up there putting people. We don't need an Obama who is. Well, we're going to go to your calls. I'm going to stop ranting just momentarily. See what you think. Jacob from Apple Valley, welcome to the show.
Hey, good afternoon, Tim.
Hey, it's great to have you on. What do you think?
Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of interesting talking about trying to pass Bush to the Democrats. I would fully agree. You have the top Republicans right now with McConnell and Boehner. I would have to say they're complete traitors to the Republican Party.
Yeah, well, I would say that they have failed to be effective opposition, so they failed America. When you have a guy who wants to fundamentally transform this country, and he wants to go counter to and subvert the Constitution, then you have a duty and an obligation to stop him.
Yeah.
And they haven't.
I heard a statistic about this other character. Unfortunately, he is from California, Mr. Kevin McCarthy. I believe he's third in line. His record on voting conservative is about 55%. So if he's battling the Democrats, that's not a very good record to protect the vision of the Republicans.
Well, but you got to be absolutely crystal clear. The Republican Party is no longer conservative. So the leadership of the Republican Party is no longer conservative. They do not believe in the principles of the party itself. They believe in being liked. And they believe the key to being liked is to cave in and sell out all of those who put them in power. So
no moral standards.
They don't want to shrink government. They're happy to redistribute wealth because when you redistribute wealth, first of all, you steal it from people who can't do anything about it. You give it to people who are somewhat grateful and they might give you their vote. And the Republican Party believes that's the key to growth. What they are ignoring is the Donald Trump effect. And what the Donald Trump effect is very simple because it's happening right before our eyes. We're watching as people are coming together. They're putting aside their differences. They're coming from all different walks of life, young and old, people from every ethnicity, people who are millennials who have never connected with the Republican Party are following Donald Trump. And what does the Republican Party want to do? They want to put him to death. Hey, thanks for the call, Jacob.
Thank you.
Going to bring on Kurt from Hesperia. Kurt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tim. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
Oh, great. Enjoyed the show, as always. Doing a good job over there. Yeah, Bush is, I agree with you. Bush is just like Clinton lookalike. They might have a couple of subtle differences, but nothing.
I think different hairstyle, right? Wouldn't you agree with me there?
Yeah, and I think Trump's got her beat. At least he shaves once in a while.
I was talking about Bush.
Oh.
I was comparing her to Bush. Now, I could see Bush wearing one of the pantsuits, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, it still holds true. At least he shaves, too. This thing with Trump, you think that they would have gotten the message when we did that unprecedented thing with the Senate, voting in all these people there. There's a groundswell right then and there. And these guys who are professional politicians, it would be nice to hear somebody talking about term limits. When we were founded, it was the idea that people that were successful in business or in life or whatever, that they would have the managerial skills and things like that, people skills, to even international skills, to come in and do a couple of terms in Congress or Senate or both, and then go back to their business. And now we got this political thing. I'd like to hear somebody talking about term limits and get rid of that political professional politicians in there.
Well,
what do you think?
You certainly have a professional political class that is running things. I've never gotten that excited about term limits because what they do is they just put somebody else in charge. We have term limits in California. So let's talk about that. How well has that worked? So now you have the lobbyists who have more power than anybody in Sacramento because you bring in a whole bunch of newbies and you cycle them through, and they by the time they learn the ropes, they're term limited out.
Well, I mean, you got to give the term limits enough, like maybe 2 to 4 terms in the Senate and maybe 6 terms in the Congress or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not excited about it, and I'll tell you why. It's real simple. I think the most important thing we can do is we can get the citizens off the couch, get them engaged, and when they get engaged and do their duty and their responsibility of checking out the candidates, they'll kick the clowns out. Anyway, Kurt, we're up against a clock here, but call back another time. We'll have a debate about it.
All right, Ted. Take care, buddy. Bye.
323-746-TALK. We'll take more of your calls right after the short break. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. You are tuned to the Radio Free California Network, and we are taking your calls. 323-746-TALK. The question is very simple. We got off on a little bit of a tangent there about term limits, but always happy to engage. And my biggest issue with term limits is people think if we have term limits, then we don't have to pay attention. We don't have to monitor. We don't have to do our duty as citizens to keep a watchful eye on those in power. Well, when you give them free rein, they take advantage. And California is the perfect test case for term limits. The shorter the term limit, the more power you give to the lobbyists and the public sector unions and the special interests. That's it. They pave the way for people to come into power. They buy them off. And in the end, we get screwed. Because we don't have representation. We have puppets. We have clowns in office. We have puppets who have strings. The strings are controlled by that tiny number of people who have an inordinate amount of power. And that is the result of your term limits in California. And it really doesn't matter whether you make it 6 years, which I think it's 6 years in the assembly when I went there. I served 4. And now I think they've stretched it out to where you can serve 12 years in either house. But there was ultimately a limit of 14 years. You could serve 8 in the state Senate, so 2 terms, and 3 terms in the state assembly. And we have Marxist progressives who control everything. So how's that working out for you, California? I don't see the point of spreading something nationwide when it isn't working in your state, because that is not the answer. I believe the answer is very simple. The people have to become active and engaged. And when enough of us do, we will be a force to be reckoned with. And until that happens, we will continue on the exact same course. The beatings will continue until morale improves. That's how it feels. But here's the question. It's a simple question. Do you think we should trade or give Jeb Bush to the Democrats so that he can run as an establishment candidate in Hillary's place? Because it's not going to be fair. You know, if they got to pull in a pinch hitter, Joe Biden, or any of these other ones that have been bandied about, it's not fair. Whereas Bush has been out there raising money, he's been building a donor base, and most of the people who donate and support him believe in the principles of the Democrat Party. They want a full amnesty for illegals. They want Common Core. They want the government to dictate and control their kids' education and make all the decisions for them. I'm sure they probably are fully in favor of SB 277 and would love to have the government stick a needle in their kid's arm without them even knowing what's in the needle, because we trust the government. Hillary and Jeb are the same on both those issues. And Jeb hates the Second Amendment, treats it like it's some kind of a social issue or a skin disease or something. And don't even get me started on any of the other social issues. But Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton are two sides of the same coin. I want to know what you think about Jeb running as a Democrat so that maybe the Republican can have a real battle and heal itself. 323-746-TALK. We'll be right back after this message.
One more dream, run away, drive. Now there's one less burned out star in the sky. Leaving California tonight.
You are listening to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, former California State Assemblyman and gubernatorial candidate. We're going to go back to the phones before we play the Hillary clip. Gary from North Dakota, welcome to the show.
Well, hi, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I got a little bit of a cold right now. In fact, a little touch of the flu. But
uh-oh. Don't get that flu shot, whatever you do.
Yeah, probably not. No. Only thing is, this new job I'm doing is required.
Uh-oh.
But anyway, I was going to talk about term limits, but you made a really good case, against them. But I was going to ask you a question. Do you support term limits on the Supreme Court justices? Would you support something like that? Because they're in for life, and I think they get a little bit bold with power, abusing it.
I don't. I really. I think the judiciary branch is supposed to be a little bit different, and you're supposed to have people who. I think the hardest thing is to pick the right people, and to pick people who have some sort of a judicial record and philosophy about the law, and they go through a pretty grueling appointment process, but it's up to the president. And I want things less politicized, not more. I don't think the term limits improves people's behavior. There's no motivation. Whereas if your motivation is to that you're going to have a legacy, that you're going to do something important, then you're always being reevaluated, especially if you have to stand for election every couple of years. Now, in the case of the Supreme Court justices, they don't. But I don't like to mess with the system that was set up by the founders. I think they had a great deal of vision. And I think every time we've tweaked it, we've corrupted a little bit of that. And I don't see the benefit. Certainly not on elected officials. So
that's an interesting take. I was going to ask you something else, Tim.
Yeah.
My wife and me are planning a vacation next summer, probably about between June and September. And we would like to stop in and visit you. We're trying to visit some of my Facebook friends, and I would like to sit in your radio show maybe for a segment or something, you know.
Well,
Is that possible?
you'd be more than welcome. It's a very unusual request, and Gary, we'd be honored to have you here. So you could co-host with me for a segment. How's that sound? If you're willing to make the drive all the way out here, you got it. And we should also extend.
I was going to meet the politichicks and stuff like that too, and we're going to try to set that up next summer. So
you couldn't be hanging out with better people. I just stopped by Anne Marie's house the other night because we were over in the LA area and visited with her and her husband. And you know, there are some amazing people who I am blessed to call friends who are fighting the good fight, who have continually stood up for that which is right, stood up for our freedom even when it wasn't popular.
I contacted her today, and she says she's well looking forward to it. So, anyway.
Well,
that's all I'm going to say, because my throat is really getting bad here.
You go and just listen. All right. Go.
I will do that.
Maybe have a drink of something that'll help. Anyway, good talking to you, Gary, and we'll look forward to seeing you when you get out here. Yeah, so I did think that was an interesting question about the Supreme Court justice. I hadn't thought about that one, but I don't like changing everything, and I don't like changing everything when you cannot point to a real benefit from what it is you're looking to move to. And I just told you what happens when we do term limit with elected officials. Because we have natural term limits, which is when you have someone who doesn't listen to you, who votes against you, you can throw them out of office. We have a system for that. It's called an election every 2 years in many of the seats. Certainly in the Assembly, in the state Senate, it's 4 years. In the Congress, it's 2 years. And the only thing that is going to change the behavior of our elected officials is when they know enough people are paying attention. And when enough people are paying attention, we become a force that they can't ignore. So, just curious. Do we have time to try to run that clip? Hillary Clinton this weekend. You won't believe it. You got to hear this. The Noskinator's got this horrified look on her face, and I have a feeling it isn't working. There it is.
There'll be no email, no personal, no official. Wipe the whole thing.
Well, my personal emails are my personal business, right? So we went through a painstaking process and turned over 55,000 pages of anything we thought could be work-related. Under the law, that decision is made by the official. I was the official. I made those decisions. And as I just said, over 1,200 of the emails have already been deemed not work-related. Now, all I can tell you is, in retrospect, if I'd used a government account and I had said, you know, let's release everything, let's let everybody in America see what I did for 4 years, we would have the same arguments. So that's all I can say. I'm not, you know, I have no idea. That's why we turned it over.
You were in charge of it. You were the official in charge. Did you wipe the server?
What, like with a cloth or something?
I don't know.
Well,
you know
no.
how it works digitally. Did you try to wipe the whole server?
I don't know how it works digitally at all. I do not have any.
You did not try.
Ed, I know you want to make a point, and I can just repeat what I have said.
It's a simple
in order to be as cooperative as possible, we have turned over the server. They can do whatever they want to with the server to figure out what's there or what's not there. That's for the, people investigating it to try to figure out. But we turned over everything that was work-related, every single thing. Personal stuff, we did not. I had no obligation to do so and did not.
All right.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much.
Did you catch it when she said, did I wipe it clean with a cloth? It doesn't come through on radio, but her body language is like this. Oh, I guess I've just... I guess... Okay, but you get what I'm saying in there. Could you believe that? I mean, that body language is like a meme just waiting to happen.
Oh, totally. There'll probably be one tomorrow.
Yeah. Unbelievably disrespectful of the seriousness of what she is charged with, her conduct, her official conduct. This is not a personal matter. This is not a witch hunt. This is facts and evidence and attitude. It's her attitude toward us, toward her duty, toward the obligation that she entered into to keep that data safe. And she didn't. She doesn't care. She really doesn't care. And she thinks it's okay to make fun of you. And I think right there, and a lot of people think that exchange could sink her and end her presidential ambitions, which began long before Bill Clinton was ever elected to office. And it could give enough fodder for House of Cards to produce another season. We can only hope. 323-746-TALK. Love to get your take on her comment coming up after the break. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. If you were looking for the Radio Free California Network, you came to the right place. And the question that we're debating today is whether or not we should make it a fair fight. Should we give Jeb Bush over to the other team since he works for him anyway? He's been batting for the Democrats for a long, long time. He is not a conservative, not by any stretch of the imagination. He is a Republican. But there's a big difference between Republican and conservative. And most people in this country are becoming a lot more conservative. And what does that mean? Does that mean that what the media says it means, which is they're a bunch of racist haters? No. It just means they want to be, number one, left alone by the government. Number two, they believe that they have a right to keep more of what they've earned. Why should you allow the government to reach its hand into your pocket and continuously steal from you, it's one thing for you to pay your quote-unquote fair share. Okay, what is that? Because I always wonder, what is your fair share? Because in the world of leftists, they'd like to get 150% of what you make. And you probably wouldn't like to give up 150% of what you make, because then you'd be in debt on top of that. So that's not your fair share. But they think 70% is a good start. 90% would be ideal, maybe 95%. We had tax rates that high. We had marginal tax rates that high under Jimmy Carter. And under Jimmy Carter, we had fewer jobs. We had more people on unemployment. We had gas lines all over this country. And when President Ronald Reagan came into office, he lowered the tax rate and started an economic boom, the likes of which we hadn't seen since the post-war era, since the end of World War II. And we had sustained economic growth that grew the middle class, that you had jobs created, you had people employed who had previously been unemployed for a long period of time. But under President Reagan, capital flourished because people knew what the rules were. And one of the rules was that if you spent that next dollar, the government didn't get 90 cents of it. He lowered it drastically. But now, between the federal government and the state government, you have an insatiable desire to get their hands on more and more and more of your money, all so that they can feed the machine and grow the government. And the most diabolical part is they want to increase their power base at your expense. And see, that's why I'm against Jeb Bush, not for any other reason. So I want to know if you'd be willing to trade Jeb Bush to the Democrats so we can have a fair fight. What say you?
Oh, I absolutely think we ought to trade him off. There is no difference between the two of them. But what is irritating me more than anything is the way these talking heads on these Sunday morning shows, these pointy-head elites, they totally are discounting the reason why Trump is so popular. They don't understand that we're pissed off out here, and nobody else is talking about the stuff that is affecting us in our day-to-day lives.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. They not only do they not understand it, but they believe that if they just stab Trump in the back or cut him off at the knees, that he'll go away. They don't understand that his followers are not going to fall in line for a Jeb Bush.
No, I actually wrote a letter to the Democratic National Committee, and I told them, I said, if you put Bush against Clinton, it'll be the first time in 42 years I absolutely refuse to vote because there's no difference.
Now, did you write that to the Democrat National Committee or the Republican National Committee?
No, the Republicans.
Okay. Yeah, you said Democrat. Well, there's very little difference anymore, so I don't blame you for mixing them up. But here's the thing. They don't understand that this is not 10 years ago or 15 or 20 years ago when they did these things in dark rooms and in alleyways where money was hidden and you would have people attacking someone and nobody knew where the attacks came from. Now with the internet, everybody knows within 30 seconds where a bogus attack is coming from. They can see the fingerprints on the money, and the most vicious and vile attacks on Republican candidates, mark my words, on conservative Republican candidates will be coming from the Republican Party, and they will pretend that their fingerprints aren't on it, but they will greenlight the money that is used to subvert and undermine and denigrate and destroy the likes of Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Scott Walker and anyone else who they perceive to be a threat to the establishment.
Oh, yeah, look how fast they crucified Herman Cain because he was a viable threat. And they destroyed him.
And they are doing in very almost imperceptible ways. They're going after Dr. Ben Carson as well because he's started climbing up in the polls. And look at all this nonsense where they're accusing him of saying that he wanted to use drones to kill people, when what he really said was he wanted to use drones the same way that they're being used by the military to essentially protect our country.
But see, that's what they don't get. They don't get that these entry-level jobs are being taken by illegals or their families, that come in here legally because of the other illegals and all the rest of the stuff. They don't understand the threat level as far as the drunk driving and the lack of insurance, and the way that they do hit and run. I deal with that because I run a trucking company, and we deal with that all the time. They just don't get it. They honestly just don't get it.
Well, they live in another world. They live in a little bubble. And the illegals that they see are people who serve them and people for whom...
their house, wreck their cars,
sure,
all the rest of the stuff. But they live in their little ivory towers, and they don't want to know. That's the problem. They don't want to know. And if it hadn't have been for Trump, in your part, do you believe that the media or any of these other pointy heads would actually be talking about any of this stuff? I don't.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Yep.
And it was the way he came across as much as what he said. It was the way he came across, and they hate him. They don't want him in the country club. It reminds me a lot of Rodney Dangerfield. Hey,
he refuses to just roll over on any of this stuff.
Couldn't have said it better. We're out of time, unfortunately. We'll talk to you a little bit.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
We're trying to figure out whether or not we should trade Jeb Bush. Well, I don't even know if we want to trade him, but we want to give him to the Democrats. And I'm curious what you think. 323-746-TALK. Welcome to the show. You are live on air.
Hello?
Yes, hello. What do you think?
I just wanted to call and leave a message. I didn't want to get on the air. I haven't really been.
Well, you are on the air.
My friend told me that you had a CPS case going, and I just had my granddaughter taken from me last week from in front of my house. They came and took her with a warrant, and I was just trying to find some information on where to look to get help.
What I would do if I were you is I would call your local assemblyman, call his district office, and give them the facts and see if they are able to do anything about it. I am not. I am simply involved in radio at this point. So I have no official role in anything like that. I was deeply involved in trying to reform CPS when I was in office. But anyway, I will let you go off air and let you handle that through other channels. Let me see if I can you help me get this other call on? It's just spinning. We're experiencing minor technical difficulties here in trying to simply communicate with you. Hey, welcome to the show. You are live on air.
Hey, Tim.
Who's this?
I was listening. This is John.
Hey, John. Welcome to the show.
Hey, awesome. Hey, I was listening to your Hillary clip, and if I remember right, the reason why she sorted those emails in the first place was to get rid of all that personal information, all that yoga stuff, and emails between her and the former president. Well, in that clip, she says there were 1,200 non-work-related emails that they found in the investigation. Well, no, wait a minute. I thought she said she took all those out. So the people she paid to take out all the non-work-related or personal emails did not do a very good job.
No, you know what I think it is? I think it goes much deeper. I think she's not a very good liar. And when you tell a lie over and over again, and then you keep changing it a little bit, eventually, and here's her biggest problem. She didn't release all this like she claims she did. She's released a tiny bit at a time, and now it's coming back to bite her because it's not going away. She thought she could count on the mainstream media to completely cover for her. But she forgot to be nice to them and schmooze up to them, and somebody got to them. And I think it was Obama and Obama's supporters and his henchmen. There's some real bad blood between Obama and the Clintons, and it's starting to come out to play.
Yeah, I just thought it was so fascinating to hear that she either did it because she was taking credit for it, or she paid people to do it to sort these emails out, and they couldn't even tell which ones were non-work related and which ones were work related because there's still 1,200 non-work related in there. So how? No wonder they couldn't tell which were classified, or they couldn't even tell which ones were her personal.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, look, she has created a crisis. She has created a classified intelligence crisis because of her actions. So right there alone, regardless of whether you like her policies or don't like her policies, she has put at risk classified information that could possibly harm intelligence efforts around the world because the stuff she dealt with was extremely sensitive. She's the highest ranking official, essentially, when it comes to our foreign negotiations, other than the president.
Yep, and then the other, I'm probably going to lose you because I'm coming up over the pass, but the other point I want to make, and I'll jump off, is that I don't understand how anything that was work-related wasn't classified. And maybe you can clarify that, because if you're Secretary of State, even your next appointment, I think, would be classified. You wouldn't want anybody to know where you're at or what you're doing. It seems like anything she did, work-related, would be classified. You wouldn't want a foreign dignitary finding out what information you're getting on the next negotiation.
Sure. Let me let you go so that you don't wind up dropping off and you can just tune in on the radio. But thank you. Great question. and I'll attempt to answer it here while you're negotiating the pass. It sounded a little bit more like he was driving through a tunnel, huh? But here's the thing. I think it's a great question. Why wouldn't all of her work data be classified? Well, let's make a couple of distinctions. There's a big difference between top secret, classified, and let's just say private. So her information should at least be private. It should be protected. In order to do that, wouldn't it be better to keep it all on a government server where you have 24/7 security, where you have literally security officers watching the security of those servers and that data? And I believe that's how it was originally envisioned. And you worked in intelligence. So can you help me here with a little bit of specifics?
1,000%. The only reason that she would have her own server was to manipulate her emails in a way that she had control, or, as she said before, is convenience. But it's not convenient.
Yeah,
nothing about this has come out as being.
Yeah,
convenient.
I think the convenience argument doesn't. I don't think holds any real water, because if she had operated off of a government phone and a government server, she could have still had her email. Because when you have email, when you open your email on your phone, it doesn't detract from that data that is then on the actual server itself. And we have a myriad of ways to make life more convenient for her. That wouldn't have been a big issue. Could have been serviced by the government. Would you agree with that?
Right, but I don't think that she would have had access to that type of government server on her phone. There's no way.
Okay, well, I have not worked in that level of security, but when I worked in the assembly, they offered us a BlackBerry that would be completely set up to handle the government emails and everything else.
Right, but those were just unclassified email correspondence.
Right,
they weren't labeled top secret or secret.
No.
Exactly.
Well, true that. So, but here's the he raises a good point though. Wouldn't you want her calendar to be secret? You wouldn't want that to be accessible or to be hacked in any way, because certainly she could be a target. She could be conducting very sensitive negotiations in sensitive time frames, which could interfere if it became public that she was meeting with someone.
Right. I think even her daily agenda, as unclassified as that was, should still have been classified in some way just to protect her own safety. And I mean, there's crazy people all over.
Yeah. But we don't know if it was. We think it should have been, but we don't know. And maybe somebody out there has a better answer. I think it makes a lot of sense. But the problem is, the only explanation for what she was doing that makes any sense to me is that she was communicating with individuals in foreign governments, and she didn't want that to be known. And she was communicating official intelligence to them in some capacity. Maybe she was pulling a Bill Clinton, and, only don't worry about the meaning of the word, what the word is, and literally slicing it and creating a justification in her own mind that what she was doing was still legal, but she just didn't want anyone to know about it. But when you track the donations, the massive donations from foreign governments to the Clinton Foundation, and then you see the official actions taken on behalf of those governments, I think it was to hide communications between them, because those things don't just happen. There's a lot of communication, and people are negotiating and saying, I want this, and if you will do this, then I will give you this much money. That's the only thing that I believe. She was looking to hide all that. And she was sharing data that maybe didn't amount to putting the lives of CIA agents at risk or something along those lines, but she was giving away intelligence about what the Obama administration was doing or about what we were doing here in the United States that was of concern to those foreign governments. And she didn't want anyone to know. That's the only thing that makes any sense to me. I don't know. 323-746-TALK. Final segment coming up. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398.
The Home Depot has a new lower price on Glidden premium interior and exterior paint. Right now, Glidden interior starts at just $17.97. So, let's cover more ground and walls and ceilings. Glidden Premium offers fresh color and solid performance. The best value paint at the lowest price of the season. Let's do this. For a limited time, get an extra $2 off 1-gallon cans of Glidden Premium interior paint. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. U.S. only.
Let's do some simple math. Say you get the Discover It card and you earn $100 in cash back. Now multiply it by 2. What do you have? Well, $200 cash back. That's right. Now when you get the Discover It card, we'll automatically double all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Plus, you can redeem any amount, anytime, and your rewards never expire. You might say your love for Discover will double. Just some of the many ways we treat you like you'd treat you. Apply now at discover.com/double. Exclusive offer for new card members. Limitations apply.
We paid less for our Craftmatic today than we did 20 years ago.
If you're still searching for the perfect solution to a good night's sleep, call now for prices and free information on today's Craftmatic adjustable beds. And then decide when you see how little they cost. Rated #1 by consumers nationwide on ConsumerAffairs.com. Craftmatic beds come in all mattress types, including cool gel memory foam for up to 50% less than today's leading memory foam brand. Enjoy temporary relief of low back pain, poor circulation, nighttime heartburn, mild arthritis. You'll sleep better in a Craftmatic adjustable bed. So if you're still searching for the perfect solution to a good night's sleep, call now for prices and information. And then decide when you see how little they cost. Discover Craftmatic for less, up to 50% less than today's leading memory foam brand.
Call 1-800-773-3208. That's 1-800-773-3208. 1-800-773-3208. Call now.
A promise was made. A promise that hit the beaches of Normandy. A covenant that split the skies over Berlin. A vow that captured Iwo Jima. A promise was made. A solemn oath that liberated Seoul. A sacred trust that defended Quezon. A pact that dug in Da Nang. A contract that weathered Tet. A promise was made. A pledge that stormed the desert in Iraq. A bond that patrolled door to door in Fallujah. An IOU that braved IEDs in Kandahar. A promise was made to America's veterans. A promise we all must keep. DAV fights for all veterans and their families so they get the health care, financial benefits, and support they earned. If you're a veteran who needs help or you'd like to help us keep the promise, visit DAV.org.
Okay, you You cannot say this is not diabolically clever music playing Running with the Devil while we are talking about the devil. Well,
I strategically planned that.
Okay. Well, we're glad to know that. The Hillary. It's been a bad couple days for her. And tomorrow my wife just showed me this great clip of this new Donald Trump commercial. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay, you're going to die. It is diabolically clever. It's Barbara Bush. Remember when she made that comment that she didn't think Jeb Bush should run?
Wait, should we tell or should we wait for tomorrow?
Oh my God.
I think we should totally wait for Tuesday.
All right. Stay tuned. Anyway, back to the question of the day. 323-746-TALK. We got a few minutes left. We'll get in a couple of your calls if you want to opine. The question is, since there's no difference between Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton, and Hillary's going down. I mean, I think we are decided. Are you in agreement that she is literally in the last phases of death for her campaign? I think
so. And I know the audience couldn't see the video that we played earlier, but her body language was terrible.
You know what? We'll put that up at timdonnellyshow.com. We'll get you a great segment, and we'll probably put out a meme sometime in the next 24 hours because it is priceless. But see, this is all about attitude. But it's also about appearance. And what color was the pantsuit? I almost called it a jumpsuit, like what they wear in prison. But actually, it wouldn't be a hard transition for her.
No, except I hope her favorite color is orange.
I think it might be, because wasn't that an orange jumpsuit, or am I colorblind? Uh-oh, I'm setting myself up here.
I'll save that joke. I think it was a sherbety type. Orangish.
Sherbety? Is that a word?
It is now.
You heard it right here on the Tim Donnelly Show. The Noskinator creates new language. Look for it in the dictionary next year. Well, I don't know what to say. I think that in the interest of fairness, in the interest of healing the Republican Party, which has declared war on its conservative base, which is pretty much the party. I don't know if you guys have figured this out in the Republican Party, but when you start hosing down the conservatives with machine gun fire and calling them crazy, calling them idiots, calling them morons, it's human nature to react. And the reaction is real simple. When you trot out the next establishment candidate in place of the great conservative warrior that you mowed down, it doesn't matter whether that great conservative warrior was Ted Cruz or Donald Trump or whomever is the conservative spokesperson of the moment who you felt was a threat to your power. But when you do that, you depress your own base. They will not turn out to vote. Not only that, they will wage campaigns against your guy on social media. And they really don't care anymore because it doesn't mean what it used to just elect a Republican. Just electing a Republican when the Republican holds the exact same views as the Democrat, you're going to have the lowest voter turnout. And you're probably going to lose to whoever the Democrat is. So I'm saying, why don't you beat the game and put your own Democrat, Jeb Bush, over there? I don't know. I think it's a brilliant idea. Well, we're almost out of time, so you're not going to get to tell me whether it's a brilliant idea. But so far, the callers were almost 100% in favor. And we will keep you informed as the clock ticks down to the witching hour for the Wicked Witch of the Democrat Party. I'm sorry. I could picture her with a broom. and the whole getup, like a Halloween witch, because I mean that's just how she comes across, doesn't she? She has that cackly laugh, and she has that personality, and you can't hide that. You can't. There's no way to make that likable, and the way she comes off in this video, and by the way, we'll have it up at timdonnellyshow.com, so you can check it out. It'll be up there later today. When you see the video, you heard the words. When you see the video, you will be shocked. Hey, we're out of time. I don't do this show alone. I want to thank my wife for letting me, Bethany Nosko, the Noskinator, for being such an extraordinary producer, Cassie Cassidy, our intrepid guest booker, Sean McNeil, who makes everything seem easy when it comes to technology, and of course, all of our sponsors and you. Without you, we don't have a show. 3 to 6 p.m. every weekday. We are right here at Radio Free California Network, streaming live at timdonnellyshow.com. God bless you and Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show.